I'm ending the intro early every day this week because I get grooving on the tunes and then I forget where I am and then I end up going like into the mic. Hey everybody, welcome back to Sales Chatter, the podcast where we help, and our goal is to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP in under 12 months. And today I've got a special guest with us. Today we're going to talk branding, we're going to talk podcasts, we're going to talk social media, and we're going to talk freight and how it all comes together. We've had quite a few people over the last couple of weeks write into us saying, I want to start my own podcast. I want to do this. You've heard the stories with Jeff and I and Trey Griggs and I about, convincing them to start podcasts and kind of go out on their own. This doesn't come easy. And as our guest today is going to tell you, it's a grind. So without further ado, if you're ready to talk about paving the way to your destiny, we got Dooner. Dooner, how are you, brother?
Without further ado, Dooner, thank you for having me on, Dan.
Good to see
I love
you
the new
buddy.
background. I love the new background you got up too. It's changed since last time I saw you.
Yeah, well, last time I think I was in this corner, in like a kitty corner desk, and then the background was kind of my bookshelf that I built with my easel, and I found that it was like the lighting and everything that I had to create. And when I have this big window right here that gives me natural light, I really don't need very much lighting. Well, today it's kind of like just about to piss rain, so I got that little cloud. I feel like I got like half the studio's lit and the other half's not. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, but yeah, no, it's a good one, man. I've always said, like when we were talking off air, man, that Stallone over the top. I love your setup when you're at your house, brother. You can't get better than that, man. Little Maersk line ship there too and everything. I love it, brother.
You gotta have a vibe, right? Like I always feel when I interview people, and you probably feel the same thing. Like if you talk to someone, they're in like a white blank room, there's nothing going on. It's like, how do I warm this person up? I can't and if you don't know, they're not online much, you don't know much of their background, you're like, I got nothing here. This person is like an NPC.
You know what? It is so true. And it's I think especially with, the last couple of years, right? People have put more focus on kind of what's behind them on camera. I remember when you and I first talked, you didn't have this piece set up. You had some of the banners of what the truck in your bedroom. And everything happened so quick. You went from studio to home. I remember that because it was right at the beginning of COVID when you and I first kind of were dancing on each other's show, as we like to say. And I remember you were like, it's one of these things, Dan, where you just kind of, you gotta, okay, I'm on in 20 minutes. And you're like, what the hell am I going to do here? And you just kind of put some things up and, now you got the nice comfy chair, you got 3/4 of you showing, you got, so we evolve, right. As we get into it. And I guess that's part of the branding. That's part of, putting work into and effort into what the end result will be, not tomorrow, but down the road. Right.
No, for sure. For sure. And you gotta build a little bit so you can feel the fruits of your labors, right? If you don't see anything tactile around you growing and getting bigger, it could get discouraging.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's get into it because I know, Dooner, we were when we were talking off air, obviously podcasting and lives like we're doing now, like we broadcast to 3 different Facebook channels, 2 different YouTube channels, Twitter, LinkedIn. The technology's there where you can literally push a button and be live in 2 seconds. But it's the other work that goes in, and we're consistently sharing with people, like, Ryan and I for Sales Chatter, there's a ton of development on the back end. And one thing that hit me when we were speaking off air, and I'd love for you to reiterate it, and I'm sorry if I'm getting you to repeat yourself, but what your day is like when you have an episode of What the Truck on kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Can you go through what a day looks like?
This is something like I always try in like my process. I try and impart it on new podcasts, especially those trying to do it professionally. Like you're trying to make a living doing this. You're going to be judged by your results. People are going to be coming at you looking at these things. it takes a lot of work. Like the show starts about, well, it starts about 2 weeks beforehand with booking guests, and I have about 4 guests an episode. And PR people know I will not do a 30-minute prep call because I have 12 guests a week. That'd be like 6 hours of prep calls. So no prep calls. What I would like though is maybe their bio and some information about what's cool that's happening and some pictures. But the first part, it starts with just getting some guests in line, looking at the news stories, looking ahead a little bit about what stories to cover or what things I haven't got to yet. And then 2 days before the show, because right after one show ends, I'm in 2 processes. It's it's promotion of what just happened. That's putting clips out. That's going on social media. And there's like 10,000 different sites you got to put stuff on now. And now there's like Zuckerberg's threads and all this crap you got to worry about.
Yeah. Like you didn't have enough places to go to get things out, right?
Yeah, well, I make it part of my process. So, like being online so much, that's where I'm finding a lot of the content that the people who are guests, the stories that I'm going to use, what people in the industry are saying, how I'm going to network. And like first and foremost, I always started the podcast to network, to have an excuse to talk to people, to have something to give them so they talk to me because I was in sales at the time. And then when I was over in marketing, it was just another reason to do it. But like the original goal was always to network and to build, and the amount of time that goes into that is, I would say, probably about 6 hours of just finding information, reading stories, studying the industry, getting all that stuff together that will eventually go on the day of the show. I get in around like 8:30, and I'll spend 8:30 to about 11 getting everything cobbled into my production sheet. Then I meet with my my on-air producer who takes like videos and stuff and gets that, knows when to trigger them. And that's about a 20-minute meeting. And then there's about 4 hours of promotion it takes about afterwards in terms of all the cutting of clips. And I have someone who helps me too, like on the promotion side, and it still takes like 4 hours. I think the mistake that some people make is, I think it's easy to get biased when you're online. Like you're on Instagram or TikTok and you see someone go live, but the things that you see live are people who already have very established audiences. They've built that. They've already built their brand. They're out there. That's why they have hundreds or thousands of people watching them at any given time. But if you're just starting out, like, and expecting that kind of thing and not putting any, or you're in a niche market like freight and just expecting listeners to come because you're so compelling, it's not going to happen. The job is not this time on camera. This is the easy part. This is like me repeating back all my research and just having a conversation with what I know about whomever I'm talking to. And I think the mistake that some people is they go, well, how long is like 26 minutes or how long is an hour? And it's like, no, multiply that by 8.
Yeah. Because it's one of these things where just because you build it, they will not come. It's it's one thing that we're fighting with at Sales Chatter, and we're actually we're bringing the audience with us through this. Ryan and I is the post production. Where do you cut it up? How many clips do you make? Where do you put it? When do you put it? How do you promote it? And listen, these are things, a year and a half after, we're still trying to get nailed down because it changes constantly. Now, LinkedIn's algorithm just changed again last week or the week before. And it's like, okay, so the things that were getting traction are no longer getting traction. They're now catching up to the point where people would put a post and then go in comments and put the link to somewhere outside LinkedIn. Well, they're not promoting that as much. You know what I mean? There's all these different variables and then all the different platforms, understanding the algorithms, how they work, what works, what doesn't, what clips do you put up for what platform? Because you don't just put one clip and broadcast it across every platform. There's different people that stay on different platforms for different reasons. It's a lot of work. And it's that consistency that drives your brand.
I think if you're doing it right and you're doing it to sort of drive leads and have it as part of your marketing and it's a real part of your strategy, the way you offset that time is you make sure these relationships you're building with your audience and through the show are somewhat convertible, right? Like they could lead to something. That could be sponsorships. That could be whatever your company does. It doesn't make a difference. But in some aspects, hi puppy. In some aspects, that's at home. I get the dogs here. At work, I got to deal with the coworkers. Here I got. She just turned 12, by the way.
Dogs are better.
Yeah, definitely. But you're right. I mean, it takes a lot of work and it takes a grind, and I think that's why you see most shows die out after like 10 episodes. Yeah. I mean, then you see some shows out there that have been on like a couple hundred episodes and they get like 3 likes, and you're like, cool. Like the person likes doing it, and maybe they do get something out of it. Because that's the one thing in niche too is like I don't necessarily think you need to look at freight like you would look at like general media content, where you go every single thing has to get a million views and every single thing has to be viral. Because in freight, if you're doing it right, you're going to have a very a very sharp scope that you're hitting people with.
Yep.
Like you're targeting transportation people. It's not like general audiences are going to come listen anyway. So I think you always got to be mindful of that too to get sort of the ROI out of making a podcast. And you always have to consider that. You always have to keep that in mind. Who does this help? Like, what is your show? Is it informative? If it's informative, who is it informing? What can your audience do after the show? Is it entertaining? Who's it entertaining? It's harder to be entertaining than it is to be informative, but it's harder, I think, to keep an audience sometimes for informative, because informative a lot of times can be really boring, especially if you don't have the right personality. And that's always sort of the balance I try to fight and strike with when I'm working on the alchemy of What the Truck.
And there's another aspect to it as well, right? It's that live versus replays, watch it later, consume it audio on a podcast. Because I find there's days I don't even know if there's anyone watching live. To be honest with you, there's no comments.
Yeah.
Either that or people are watching and they're listening to the show, they're understanding everything. And there's other days where there's tons of comments when the audience is really engaged. But nonetheless, we go live every day. And that audio part of it, though, that the results we get, like our podcast, Sales Chatter, is in 77 different countries over 6 continents. And it's pretty cool to see that results of when people download it afterwards. And I've always found, and I've said to salespeople for years now, originally it was a website. Like, as a salesperson, pay somebody on Fiverr a couple of $100, put up a website about you and what you do and why you do it, and just write some blogs. So when customers Google you, they can find some articles or things like that you've written. If you have a podcast, I think that's awesome as well, because now when customers are coming to find you, they find some of the content you're putting out there in a grander scale than just a post here and a post there, right? And then it's like, it brings that, I'm not going to say that celebrity piece to it, but it brings that qualifications that, okay, you have a voice, you share your thoughts, right, wrong, and different, right? Right, yeah. And it's do you say you lost me?
No, I got you back. I got a spin wheel for a second, but I think we're good now.
Okay, cool. It's the deadly spin wheel. And then you have
a flywheel. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right? Is a flywheel. It is a content flywheel. And you bring up the audio part. Like, if you're just doing, in my opinion, if you're trying to do the type of show I'm doing and you're just doing live streams, like, why? Like, as you said, like, yeah, you can get 0 to a few thousand listeners that way, but you're asking people to make an appointment with like a freight show. Like, not everyone has time to do that. Plus, like, they might not get to hear all of it. So, like, not having an audio component is insane. But that's also why the videos are so important. Like, I don't care. Like, every time I put up a What the Truck video, I don't care if someone like goes and then like immediately listens to What the Truck. I want you to just know the logo. I want you to know the brand. I want you to see our faces. And I want sponsors to see their logo. And I want the guests to see that their time is now valued. Because a lot of times, on TikTok, for example, we can have clips. Like, our TikTok does really well. You could have a clip. Like, the show itself might do like 4,000 on YouTube and another, 4,000 in audio downloads. But then on TikTok, it's got like 150,000 views.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that you can bring to when you're selling. And I think that that's kind of the hard work, but that's like the important work. Because what's the point of making content that is so expirable that it's only good for the duration of the half hour or 60 minutes that you're recording?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. Gary Vee always says, document, don't create. Right. And you're with you having 4 guests on. I love that. I mean, the work that goes into bringing 4 guests on a show must be astronomical, because, you're trying to plan each guest. I mean, obviously your team, but you plan each guest, you bring them in, you have the conversation, you move on, you have the conversation. Then you have to go and talk about your sponsors and honor those people. And like, you've got all sorts of segments. So you got to really be on your game, and you got to really be timed. Do you feel you're timed, or have you got it down to a point now where it's just a flow?
So for a little bit, I had booking help and I got rid of it. I'm very controlling, like of the show and of this product. I spend a lot of, so I book all
Well,
the guests
it's your
myself.
brand, brother.
Well, I've always like, to me, like the whole process is part of the networking. Like even booking a guest and extending that, and then afterwards thanking them and saying that allows me to own the relationship. And that's what I take from sales. I used to be in sales before I did this, and I used to be in marketing. So I understand the value of having those connections and the value of someone knowing your name. And like the smallest thing, like seeing someone at a conference, right? And like you shake their hand, you talk to them once, check their card, you connect with them, and suddenly like you're best friends. And it's like, in reality, I've only talked to this person for like maybe 2 minutes, but now we've had that connection. We've met and we've talked and it's real. And now you sort of have that leg up on everybody else. And I think podcasting does that as well, especially in our business, especially like early on too, when there were a lot less shows. There's a lot less opportunities for people to get like featured on a show and be on the cover of something. And like, ooh, like my industry has some coverage now. But you still can give people that new feeling. I've de-virginized so many people in this industry to their first podcast.
Yep. And it's I remember when I was on your, so are you still doing the Sirius Radio trucking show as well? Or did you no longer doing that?
No, that I used to do on Saturdays. I used to do on Saturdays back in the day, and it was fine, but like they didn't want to. They wanted to sell it more on like, hey, it's good promotion for you. And I'm like, hey, man, I get much more feedback for my own podcast and I can see the metrics on that and I get paid for that. So I'm not interested in renewing the contract. We're back though. I mean, they do it 5 to 7 now. Grace Sharkey hosts it. I wasn't overly interested in doing like a 5 to 7 because I got kids that are 6 and 8 and that's when they're home from school. That's like prime time age. And like, I'm good with I'm good with this. Like this is working. I pour my effort into this one and I can help everybody else out in the back. So that's really my goal and my focus.
Yeah. And you know what? And what the truck, I mean, you brought up a very valid point is you're creating, by going live, you're trying to get people to see you on a specific day at a specific time, right? In our industry, I mean, hell, even now, 10 minutes from now, I can have great intentions to be on something at 11:30. And then something happens in our ever-changing game of logistics, and there's no chance I'm getting on at 11:30. So it's that cutting up, it's that post-production, even to the point where I might say, okay, I want to go watch what the truck, or I want to go watch Sales Chatter. I'll do it later. And then your post, to your point of, not necessarily that post is going to drive 1 million people to like it, but that post is going to say to me, oh, I forgot. I'm going to go back and listen to What the Truck this afternoon because I saw your post again. And all of a sudden now it's refreshed my mind, right? So do you have, for everyone watching and listening, Dooner, that's thinking of this, do you have some kind of like pre-production, post-production strategy that you go with when you talk about the different social media platforms? Do you like share with us kind of what your secret sauce is to help these people really just decide if they want to start a podcast, because consistency is king, right?
So I'll tell you something. So we have this girl, Alex, who works with us. She's a social media person. And after your show, you Slack her and you say, hey, this part right here and this part right here would be great to have clipped. Can you get that out? That's intentional. Like I already know what the clip is before the show even happens because I know where the question's going to be. I know the video aspects that I'm putting in. I already know that, so that can cut down on a lot of the work there. I've noticed though that not everybody does that because when you approach other people and you go, "Hey, what clip do you need?" They go, oh, "I don't know. What do you think was good?" And you don't do that. That's operating without intention. Being incredibly deliberate in what you're doing, what you want to get out of your guest, what the feeling you want, and what the point of this is. Like it's marketing. Marketing is about having a strategy. Putting the show out there is like the advertising of it, but the marketing is actually having a strategy to perform with. So that's what it comes down to. And then when we look at sites like TikTok, for example, things with like Sonar charts, talking about the market with my audience on TikTok, those do really, really well. So Justin, my guy who handles that, I'll just be like, Justin, and well, I mean, I don't have to anymore. He already knows. And he was a former truck driver too. So one thing that's super helpful about that is he knows the industry. So a lot of times you'll hire someone who will come in and they'll do social media marketing for you, and especially in freight, but it can be precarious because if they don't know the business, how do they know the audience, right? How do they know how to communicate them? How do they know out of 60 minutes of sound or video, what of that is impactful to a truck driver or a CEO at a freight tech company right now? You need a little bit of experience to understand that. And if you don't, it's like you got to tell the clipper the exact times in there. So it's just a lot more helpful. So for me, it's helped me even more beneficially than Justin being able to cut the clips, is like him understanding what clips need to be cut. But you have to be deliberate, right? And you have to be honest too. Like there's people who like they will post the same style of content over and over again. It's not working, and it's like maybe you should do what everyone else does and look at what's doing well, and not necessarily copy it, but model it. Like get in that frame, because that's what people care about now. And it's a moving target, and it's constantly moving. And that's part of the grind too. And I think that's where people just get discouraged. You also like there's people too. We sometimes have like seminars on like how to be better at social media. And you'll talk to people, and you go and you'll do like an audit of what they're doing on social media, and they're like, I can't get any traction. So you look at what they're doing, and it's like you don't exist barely. You never post. But even more important, when you're building an account, you don't comment enough. You got to comment on bigger accounts. You got to get on people's radars. Start commenting on people who you want to be guest accounts. Start commenting on people who you want to be listeners of your show's accounts, and put yourself out there. And a lot of people don't. They don't understand that like it's a lot of work. I think there's like something like 90% of accounts on social media they're just ghosts. They don't post at all, right? Yeah. And then like only 1% post multiple times a day. Multiple times, but those are all opportunities. And not all of them are going to work. You know, the algorithms are there. Don't get sad when something gets like 30 views, as long as a lot of your other stuff is getting a lot more views. Because sometimes the algorithm's just gonna screw you that way.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Also,
like,
the post that you have
you got to build. But the quickest.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just my only last point was sometimes like on LinkedIn, for example, like funny like shit posting, it seems to 10x trying to be like smart and writing a big long post too. So don't be afraid to put a few memes or humorous or really just sort of interesting things. One thing I always found too about this industry is none of us know what each other does. I've worked in so many different companies and been in so many different departments that department to department, nobody knows what they do. So when like I was making What the Truck, I'm like, this doesn't need to be a deep dive on anything. This needs to be an archway so people can understand what people do in this business and what challenges they're facing from different perspectives, especially since it's like audio video medium. I don't expect people to be there. It's not a webinar. It's not designed to be a webinar. There's still too many podcasts out there that think they're webinars, or just too many, like, I don't know. A lot just start looking the same because there's so many now. You got to be a differentiator. You got to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, we've got it's a constant game of struggle to stay relevant 24/7. Instant access to information, events happening around the world. Flavor of the month has become flavor of the moment. And that is so true.
They've said viral. I mean, they've said virality's dead, right? I've heard that said, like, because everything, like, there's thousands, millions of creators who have content that goes out that gets hundreds of thousands, millions of views. There's very few like staying power. Like, remember the memes from like, I don't know, 2005 to maybe like 2015, like Wonka, Kermit the Frog meme. Like, those things were around for like years.
Yeah. The one
nowadays, if you share a meme like 3 days after its expiration date, people.
Yeah, the one you still see a lot is the one, the guy that stands there and says, "Yeah, can we?" I forget the show it was from, but he's on a ton of them where he says, "Can we stop using Excel spreadsheets?" You see that meme all the time where he's still. They used to be gold, and now they're just like you kind of scroll over them. Your eyes gloss over them, and it's crazy how up and down, but it's. I think a lot of creators, and for all of you creators out there, please share with Dooner and I. They get tied up in those likes and those, nobody's seeing me, thinking that this is just an instantaneous kind of thing. You do 10 podcasts, and all of a sudden you're going to be a Joe Rogan getting paid millions, right? Like, it doesn't happen like that anymore, and the consistency is something I really want to talk about, because I look at your dedication on What the Truck, and you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the amount of work and dedication going into it, it's pretty much a full-time job to do a show Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you think about that for a second, and it's like, people have their freight business, they have their team they're developing, they have their life that, like you said, I stopped doing that because it was prime time for my kids. Right? Like, we have all these things to do, and yet they're trying to get that internet fame, if you will, I don't know if that's the right word,
Yeah.
Dooner, but I'll use it. Um, and so share with them kind of from when you started to now, kind of what that mentality was for you, because I know, you went from sales to marketing to, I mean, I remember when you first started at Freightwaves and started the podcast. We've had many conversations over the years about it, and the challenges to stay consistent, to stay relevant, to stay in the now.
Yeah, I mean, on this particular show, we're on episode 603. So none of this is like stuff that happened overnight. I started at Freightwaves in 2019, but I started podcasting all the way back in 2017, and I started out independently with like a 250. I was just fired from my job. I just went to rehab for alcoholism and depression, and I just had a baby, and it was like I knew that like for my mental health for a while, I couldn't get back into sales. Like I had got fired from that job. The year before was a down market. I didn't do well. It was like it was starting to get to me. There's all types of grinds. You got to figure out which grinds you can stand. I can stand the podcast grind. I couldn't stand the sales grind. You guys are tougher than me, so I'll give you that credit right there. But I just started out independently. But even then, everything was consistent. I started out doing just weekly, and I have social media every day, weekly behind the first show, the Shipping Pod, and it would get like 500 to 1,000 listens was good enough because that got the attention of this guy, Steve Aborn at Aborn and Company. And that was my whole goal. This show's the indie one, but I eventually want to get paid, right? I was like, I don't know if I'm going to drive sponsorships, but I kind of want a marketing job. I want to get paid. And they brought me on to be their marketing director. But it took a while. Even that, for a year, they only brought me on to be like a ghostwriter. So I was ghostwriting blogs for them. And like once in a while would have them on the show I was building. But like more and more people would reach out. More and more people, hey, I listen to that. Hey, I listen to that. And these are people with like potentially could give me most I was thinking about job. I got 2 kids now, I gotta get some stability in there. But it was cool. And then I got over to Aborn and it's another grind. But I took the fundamentals I learned from doing the independent show and I carried that over. And I brought those same things to Freightwaves with doing What the Truck. And you're right, it's a full-time job. When I got there, I was audio director. I did What the Truck. I did Freightwaves Insiders. I did a show called Freight All Kinds. I had a bunch of different shows. And that was kind of to find out what worked, and What the Truck is really what worked. And then it grew into 3 days a week and became financially strong enough and everything to be like a full-time job. And it's really consuming. I don't think like your average business owner that's trying to do a show just to get their name out there should copy the What the Truck model. This is more like my model is way more for someone who's like, yes, you want to do this full time. But I think that all of those things, someone started out as one or someone who's a marketing director doing a podcast, a lot of those fundamentals still stand. You might not have 60 hours a week to dedicate to this, but I think if you have a podcast, you need like 10 to 20 hours. You need to put time into it. And I'm talking about if you're doing it from beginning to end in terms of really incorporating with your sales and marketing, you're converting these leads, you're making sure to reach out to the audience, you're making sure to talk to the guests and develop those relationships. That takes time.
Yeah,
that takes time. And like, what makes you want to do it? For me, it's always been passion, because like my rehab and recovery have always a little bit been tied to what I do here and like being a good provider for my family. So for me, that's what wakes me up and motivates me. But I'm also like, I'm blessed. I got a great job. I get to talk to the best people in this industry. I get to talk to people in this industry that nobody would ever talk to as well. Like on the same show, I have Jet McCandless from Project 44, multi-billion-dollar company, and a truck driver, which I think is awesome. That to me is like, that's the archway that I try to build. And like when I do that and the show's done and I'm cutting clips, I'm so ready for episode 604, episode 605, because it's working, it's happening, and I've made it a part of what I need to do. I've formed the habit. And it's like like sales. So much of what you do is tedious, right? So much of what you do is tedious. So you have to find ways of not letting that grind you down to the bone. And sometimes that's taking a break too. You're telling me you try to take that 2-weeker one time.
Yeah. Yeah. You've reformatted the word sales into what you do. So, where you said, if you're in sales, you're a bigger person than me. It's everything you just talked about is sales. You're looking at it from a different perspective. And I love it because if I was not doing a podcast, you would have sold me on a podcast right now. So you're really good at sales, brother. It's just, it's from that passionate point of view. Right. And I mean, you look at, some of the things you just said, everything you talked about has an underscore of branding, right? Dooner's a brand. Even though Dooner's inside a Freightwaves brand, Dooner's a brand of his own. And I think as a podcaster, no matter what company you're at, you have to have that personal brand as well, because people are going to watch What the Truck for Dooner. My belief, and please, if you think I'm wrong, please share with me. Um, but I love watching your personality. I love watching like the way you go about things, the way you do things, that the intensity, the cowbell, all the other things that you've done over the years with What the Truck, the championship belts and everything, and the whole stage and the setup and everything. Like, to me, that's Dooner at the core, and I love that part of it. The information's great,
Oh,
but I
sure.
love that
But
part of
I
it,
was
right?
similar to that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
Yeah, no, I think it's
and
well. This came up yesterday. This came up like like brand's important, and it takes a long time to build a brand, but it takes one like tweet or post to destroy it. And I was taught, and like Justin, the social media guy I work with, he made a meme. It was really funny, but it was just too mean spirited. And like that's not my. I'm not that like. It's cool to dunk on things, but I usually don't like dunk on people personally. Like I'm not out here to attack people. This is a show like to generally have a pretty good vibe about it. Like that's not my
yeah,
goal. Is to like undercut people or take shots. And I'm like, yeah, we'll make like fun of companies once in a while and that kind of thing. But when people are losing jobs and stuff like that, like no way, like just
yeah,
not cool, not cool. I've been fired before. I know how crappy it is. I know how
yeah,
I'm empathetic to that. So I think that keeps
yeah,
some of the edge. Some people might want to see more of an edge, more of an attack. But I made a decision early on that like stay out of politics, stay out of just attack. Like
yeah,
don't be a negative influence.
yes, yeah. And I mean,
Especially in B2B. I mean, like, unless
yeah,
you're making like blockbuster spot, like if you get like 2 million, you're not going to get any sponsorships anyway. You'll show
yeah,
will be over quick enough.
yeah. It will. Ryan often says, Dan, don't get us canceled. When I sometimes, I sometimes get carried away, but it's my passion about the industry, right? It's my passion about, my beliefs. And it's, like these things, like if you're going to create a transactional business, you're going to burn out and you're not going to be around long term. Why would you want to do that? Kind of beliefs, right? Um, but it's funny because that branding piece of it goes further than anything ever could, like, and it gives you that credibility, Dooner. Like you have Dooner in my view, you have Dooner as a brand. And then I see, going back to what you said earlier, then I see like rate the strap work. Those,
Sure.
and I mean, I love looking at those posts. They're fantastic because I don't know where you get these pictures from, but dude, some of these, the one that you had just like 2 days ago, where it was so neatly packed that literally one piece of twine was holding this thing together, and I was like, that is classic. And that dude's going down the highway like that. That's an awesome picture. But it's like, that's a total Dooner thing. Do you know what I mean? And so you've created
Well,
this
you know where the viral
brand.
loop.
Go.
But I was going to say, you know where that viral loop came from? Like, you never know what's going to hit online too. So if you have just like,
Yeah.
if the idea seems like somewhat good at the time, just put it. Like, I could not think of a caption for one of those pictures of like a horrible strap work, and I was like, I'm just not feeling great. I can't think of anything. So I'm like, whatever. I'll be lazy and put rate the strap work and just put up that way, and maybe they'll get some engagement. And then it like worked, and I'm like, oh crap, okay, I created a viral loop by accident. But
Yeah, and
it's
it
fun
works
now. But
great
now I gotta
every
go and
time.
find like it's
Yeah,
well,
and
people
then the
send me a
one
lot
that
of
you
pictures now too, so I don't even have to go and find them.
That's even better. We got, you have to be able to carry the audience. The name of the show won't carry the audience, but the person inside the show will. And I couldn't agree with that more. That personality. But here's also the flip side of it. I think everyone has a personality someone will connect with. Do you know what I mean? Like, certain people connect with certain influencers or social media. Like, certain people love Gary Vee, certain people hate Gary Vee. Certain people love Tony Robbins, certain people hate him. And you can go on and on and on to all of these influencers, for lack of a better word, gurus, influencers, whatever you want to call them, in every industry, right? Some people have never heard of Jeb Blunt. Other people love him for the books he writes, right? So I think everyone, as well as in sales and logistics, like, there's a customer for everyone in this industry, right? There's an audience for What the Truck. And then there's an audience that doesn't watch What the Truck for whatever reason.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe they don't enjoy Dooner's energy. You know, maybe they're just that crazy. But it's that's the point, is this branding, this market, like this industry, it's small, but it's huge. And there's a millions and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people in the industry. Someone's going to connect with your message. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. And like, here's the thing. Not everyone's gonna love you. Not if everyone does, you're trying to please too many people. You're gonna please nobody. Like you'll
Yeah.
be very middle of the road. And I'm not saying you got to go like far right or far left, but people do like a little bit of polarization, and polarization gets engagement. People like to be polarized a little bit. And someone who's like really subdued or something would probably be very annoyed by my personality, which is fine. I'm not trying to hit that person. That's okay. Like
Yep.
someone called me a bearded clown yesterday, and actually, that's great. You're a listener. Like I don't care. Call me a bearded clown all you want. Throw the insults away. Keep commenting. 99% of people don't comment. So like, there's a comment.
True.
Keep doing it. And you have to take. It's like sales. You have to develop a bit of a hard skin too, and not always take things personally.
Yeah.
You have to. It's very easy to like take one bad message where like what go in your DMs. Like you have the CEOs of massive companies thanking you for this opportunity, text messaging you, thanking you for the opportunity. Like remember that. You have audience members who are, you helped me with my truck. I was going to buy a truck in 2022 because I saw some online course on TikTok that said I can make $1 million with a box truck. But thank you for telling me the freight market's crapping out right now, so I don't get a $120,000 note on a used truck.
Yeah. Yeah. Or thank you for telling me that it's harder than it appears to be on a sales page.
Sure.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? It's that I think a lot of people are tricked by the hoorah rah that this industry. Listen, there's millions to be made in this industry, Dooner. You and I both know it.
Yeah.
But it's hard work. It's dedication. It's education. It's principles. It's a nonstop. Like you gotta constantly, like, you're not the same Dooner you were when you first started podcasting. You know more, you learned more, you understood more, you kind of developed, you educated yourself, you grew in vibration. And if you just stay here 5 years from now, like you're irrelevant. Hell, even 6 months from now, you're irrelevant. You know what I mean? And it's one of these things where, oh, and I've seen a lot of influencers on Instagram and TikTok, oh, a phone and a laptop and you can make millions. And it's like, there is so much more behind the scenes, which is why I really wanted to dig into a day in the life of Dooner on What the Truck, because that shows people, they see this fancy studio, they see this beauty, like, and you got it down, brother. Like I gotta hand it to you. Like you got the timing down, you got the voice, the tonality going up and down, like you got everything down pat. But this has been a lot of work to this point, and it's still a lot of work to maintain that high altitude that you're at, because there's one thing to get to the top. It's another thing completely to stay there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a lot like sales in the sense that you can't hide from your not like the numbers are always there. They're always there. You always see it. You're always reminded of it. And like sales, it's very personal because it's you. It's you who's there. It's this that people are saying about. But you also got to kind of like, I'm not saying disassociate from yourself or like characterize yourself, but like there's like the on-air version of me, and then there's like me with my kids or me with my wife or me just in like a relaxed setting. Like I don't just run into rooms like sounding like I do when I'm on air. I sound like I do on air because I have a truncated amount of time to get points across. And I know that people are listening, so I don't want to be in like a monotone or something and kill them. I have like really bad ADD. Yeah, I can't, like, I had such a hard time learning in school from like teachers who just really like, it starts to just sound, literally cannot hear your words anymore.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because one of the first things I said when I started this podcast is I'm going to be me. And I'm like the same person on all my phone calls, on hanging out with my friends and family. Like I'm sarcastic as hell. I crack jokes, and I actually have to tone myself down. I actually have to go the opposite when I'm on air, because I can get really carried away at harassing people. Because I love it. I love being harassed, and I love harassing people. I think it's like harassing a good friend is like one of the best things you can ever do in life, and getting harassed by a good friend, in my opinion, to the point where my my wife has said, I don't know how many times, he's just joking. He's just joking. He's like, don't worry about him. He's joking. And because I'm like out there, right? So I actually had to do the reverse. I have to tone myself back on when I go live and when I post and all that kind of stuff, because I don't think some people can handle it. I really don't. And it's crazy, but I just don't. So
Yeah.
you know what, Dooner? Oh, what do we got? Life lessons and logistics learned. Jeff, did you get a tat done? Wow, yeah. New one yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, man. That was my gift from beating cancer. Was I'm all in on
Oh,
life.
I know.
Man.
I wish I had my cowbell here. Air cowbell for beating cancer, since I don't have one.
Thanks, buddy.
Little prop work cowbell.
Next time, buddy. Next time when we dance again, we'll do it. We'll do it for
Yeah,
sure.
well, I'll have you on my show soon, and I'll hit the real one for you.
Definitely, brother. I'm all in, man. So share with the audience before we get going. You know, what do you got coming up? You got anything special coming up? What can you share with the audience about what you got going on, man? Get some people over.
What's cool coming up? Just we got a full slate of summer shows, obviously on What the Truck, which is, as you've mentioned many times, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, live at noon. But obviously, we're all busy people. I don't expect you to make an appointment with your TV, so you can subscribe to it on audio wherever you get audio podcasts. If for some reason you actually want to look at me, we're on YouTube. Go to Freightways YouTube page. There's about 600 What the Truck back episodes over there. And what we got coming up, we have F3 coming up in November. It's gonna be a good time. It's our big conference down here in Chattanooga. And I learned recently I may have an onstage session similar to this one about building What the Truck there. I might be getting to do a session that I've wanted to do for a while. So that will be cool. I mean, I'll be doing What the Truck from the actual event, but it'd be cool to sort of talk about the behind the scenes a little bit and give some of that audience, as everyone is trying to sort of, I don't know, launch their own brands and personify their companies. And I think people realize that they need a logo is great, but you kind of also need that face to put next to it. And I think that's why there's such an attraction to getting into this field over here.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what, brother, I think that point, I think you would attract so many more people if there was even just a segment or something about how we're building and how we built What the Truck from where it was to where it is. Because that educational piece, I think, is critical for everyone, right? And it'll inspire people either to not or to, right? Because you'll have both the juxtaposition, right? Like, shit, that's a lot of work. I didn't think it was that much work. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to, ghost write for somebody. I'm going to write a blog. I'm going to do this, right? I think it's great. And when is F3? November.
Geez, I keep thinking last year's dates, because last year I think it was November 2nd to 5th, but I think this year it's November 7th to 9th. You can go to live.freightwaves.com to confirm that, but I believe it is then. I'm not sure if I'm going there's been one of the problems with going someplace and doing a show that takes a lot of work, like mine, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, is if I go on a trip somewhere to go film something or even a conference, it's incredibly disruptive to what I already do the show. And the ROI and a lot of that stuff is just those sort of travel episodes, they don't do any better. So I think that, I think a lot of time in the studio this summer, it's our 10-year anniversary with my wife this year too. So we gotta figure out
something. Don't do what I did. Do something special, brother.
Yeah, well, we already did. We got a minivan. So we upgraded to a minivan for the kids. No, we're definitely going to go somewhere. It's coming up soon enough. Actually, today's July 13th. Today's the day I proposed to my wife. Proposed to my wife on Friday the 13th on a beach in South Boston.
Congratulations, brother. Way to go, man. Way to go. Way to go.
And not superstitious. Right. It's lasted 10 years.
Yeah, well, that's it. Exactly. No, man, that's good. That's good. To everybody watching and listening, thank you so much. Head over to YouTube, subscribe. The algorithms are a little bit better on YouTube than they are on LinkedIn, as we kind of chatted about today. And be sure to watch us tomorrow. We're talking game shows. We're doing our strategies. And I think my man Ryan's back tomorrow. I'm pretty sure he's back tomorrow. Let me just see here, because he commented here. He says, he said, when did Dan get a tattoo? Yesterday, brother. This is brand new. Brand new.
He must have missed that earlier.
Yeah. It's okay. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Dooner, thank you so much for being here again, brother. And you know what? Thank you so much for opening up and sharing with the audience kind of, the before, middle, after, and now future of What the Truck. It was a great show, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, and appreciate your audience. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.